Story 1. The moon hung low in the ink-black sky, casting eerie shadows on the decaying facade of the Hollow Grove Asylum. Its crumbling walls stood as silent witnesses to the tortured souls that had once called it home. The air was thick with a palpable sense of dread, and the overgrown vegetation seemed to writhe in the subtle breeze. Few dared to venture near the forsaken structure, but curiosity has a way of drawing the bravest and most foolish alike. Emma, a young journalist with an insatiable appetite for the macabre, had heard whispers about the asylum's haunted past. The locals spoke of mysterious lights, ghostly wails, and the unsettling feeling of being watched. Intrigued, Emma decided to investigate the asylum's secrets, hoping to unearth a story that would launch her career into the stratosphere. Armed with a dim flashlight and a sense of trepidation, Emma approached the asylum's rusting gates. The entrance creaked open with an agonizing groan, as if protesting the intrusion of the living into this realm of the dead. The air grew colder, and the once distant sounds of night creatures fell silent, as if nature itself held its breath in anticipation. Emma stepped through the threshold, her senses heightened as the oppressive atmosphere pressed against her. The asylum's interior was a maze of crumbling hallways and decaying rooms. Flickering fluorescent lights cast unsettling shadows on the peeling wallpaper, revealing glimpses of the asylum's tortured history. As Emma delved deeper, she felt an otherworldly presence, a spectral force that seemed to guide her through the labyrinthine corridors. Whispers echoed in the emptiness, unintelligible voices that murmured of despair and forgotten agony. Each step she took resonated with the echoes of the tormented souls that had once wandered these desolate halls. In a forgotten corner, Emma discovered a room that bore the marks of a violent history. Rusty shackles hung from the walls, and an ancient operating table lay stained with the memories of unspeakable horrors. The air grew thicker, and Emma's breath caught in her throat as she sensed a presence in the room, an entity that had lingered for decades, trapped between the realms of the living and the dead. Suddenly, the temperature plummeted, and a flickering light manifested in the center of the room. Shadows danced, coalescing into ghostly figures that seemed to replay the asylum's darkest moments. Emma witnessed the tortured souls of the past, their anguished faces contorted in eternal suffering. The air was heavy with sorrow, and the room reverberated with the echoes of their pitiful cries. As Emma struggled to comprehend the spectral display before her, a cold hand brushed against her shoulder. She turned to find herself face to face with a gaunt figure, a specter of a former asylum inmate. The ghostly visage bore hollow eyes that stared into Emma's soul, conveying a silent plea for release from the torment that bound it. Paralyzed with fear, Emma watched as more phantoms materialized around her. Each spirit had a story, a tragic tale of suffering and despair. The asylum's walls seemed to pulse with the anguish of those who had been forsaken within its confines, their restless spirits longing for peace. In a desperate attempt to escape the spectral onslaught, Emma retraced her steps through the winding corridors. The air resonated with the anguished cries of the tormented, and the oppressive darkness closed in around her. It became clear that the asylum's haunted past was not content to remain buried in the annals of history. It demanded acknowledgement, justice, and release. As Emma reached the asylum's entrance, the flickering lights intensified, casting a haunting glow over the dilapidated structure. The very fabric of the building seemed to protest, its time-worn walls groaning as if reliving the atrocities committed within. With a final, echoing scream, the tormented spirits faded away, leaving Hollow Grove Asylum in a chilling silence. Emma stumbled out into the night, gasping for breath as the weight of the supernatural encounter lifted. The asylum loomed behind her, its secrets exposed but its malevolence lingering. The once curious journalist now carried the burden of the asylum's tortured history, forever etched into her memory. From that night on, Hollow Grove Asylum stood as a stark reminder of the thin veil between the living and the dead. Its haunted corridors whispered tales of suffering and despair, a chilling testament to the darkness that can consume even the bravest souls who dare to explore the boundaries of the supernatural. Emma, forever changed by her encounter, now grappled with the haunting knowledge that some horrors are best left undisturbed in the shadows. Story 2. The small town of Raven's Rest lay nestled between dense forests, its ancient streets silent in the moonlight. The only sounds were the distant hooting of owls and the soft rustling of leaves in the nocturnal breeze. The townsfolk knew better than to wander the streets after dark, for Raven's Rest harbored a dark secret that unfurled its malevolence under the cloak of night. As the clock struck midnight, a pale mist crept through the narrow alleys, weaving its way towards the derelict mansion known as Raven Manor. Legend had it that the manor's original owner, the enigmatic Lord Ravenscroft, had made a pact with the supernatural to attain immortality. In return, he had to offer a nightly sacrifice, a soul to quench the insatiable thirst of the phantom presence that dwelled within. Emily, a young artist with a fascination for the macabre, had recently moved to Raven's Rest seeking inspiration for her next masterpiece. Drawn to the eerie stories that circulated among the locals, she found herself inexorably drawn to the mysterious mansion that stood at the edge of town. One moonlit night, unable to resist the call of the unknown, Emily stood before the wrought iron gates of Raven Manor. The mansion loomed like a dark sentinel against the night sky, its windows vacant eyes that seemed to pierce the very soul of those who dared to gaze upon it. Undeterred, Emily pushed open the creaking gates and stepped into the overgrown garden that surrounded the foreboding structure. As she approached the entrance, the temperature dropped, and an ethereal mist enveloped her. Unseen eyes watched her every move as she crossed the threshold, and the heavy air seemed to whisper warnings that went unheard. The grand foyer greeted Emily with faded opulence, dusty chandeliers, moth-eaten tapestries, and a lingering scent of decay. Guided by an invisible force, Emily ascended the grand staircase, her footsteps echoing through the empty halls. Portraits of stern-faced Ravenscrofts adorned the walls, their gaze seemingly following her ascent. In the heart of the mansion, a door stood slightly ajar, revealing a room bathed in an eerie blue light. As Emily pushed open the door, a cold wind swept through the room, extinguishing the candles that flickered on an ancient candelabrum. In the center of the room, an antique mirror reflected a phantom presence, the silhouette of Lord Ravenscroft himself. His gaunt face bore the weight of centuries, and his hollow eyes seemed to beckon Emily closer. Compelled by an unseen force, Emily approached the mirror. As her reflection merged with the spectral figure of Lord Ravenscroft, the room echoed with the anguished wails of lost souls. The mirror's surface rippled, revealing a spectral realm where tormented spirits roamed in perpetual agony. Suddenly, the room plunged into darkness, and Emily felt an otherworldly presence enveloping her. The ghostly apparitions of Raven Manor materialized around her, their spectral forms reaching out as if seeking release from the ethereal chains that bound them. Each spirit had a story, a tale of betrayal, heartbreak, and a desperate yearning for freedom. Emily, now trapped within the haunted realm, witnessed the mansion's grim history unfold before her eyes. Lord Ravenscroft's insatiable quest for immortality had condemned generations to an eternity of suffering. The nightly sacrifices were not mere tales, they were a sinister reality that perpetuated the mansion's cursed existence. As the spirits reached out to Emily, she felt their pain seeping into her very essence. The once curious artist now bore the burden of Raven Manor's haunted legacy, her connection with the supernatural twisting into a harrowing ordeal. The mansion's walls seemed to close in around her as the anguished spirits sought solace through her presence. Desperate to escape the spectral clutches that bound her, Emily stumbled through the mansion's hallways. The air resonated with the tormented cries of the trapped souls, and the very fabric of the supernatural realm seemed to resist her attempts to break free. Raven Manor had claimed another victim, and Emily was now an unwilling participant in its nightly ritual. Back in the mortal realm, the townsfolk of Raven's Rest sensed the malevolent energy emanating from the mansion. The air crackled with an otherworldly force, and a chorus of ghostly wails echoed through the night. The town's once silent streets now thrummed with an unnatural energy, signaling the malevolent presence that held sway over Raven Manor. As the first light of dawn broke, the spectral realm within the mansion began to fade. Emily, drained and disoriented, found herself back in the room with the haunted mirror. The grandeur of Raven Manor now seemed a facade, its opulence replaced by the stark reality of its cursed existence. Haunted by the memories of the spectral ordeal, Emily fled the mansion, leaving the gates of Raven Manor behind her. The townsfolk, aware of the mansion's dark secret, avoided her gaze as she stumbled through the silent streets. The artist who had sought inspiration now bore the weight of Raven Manor's cursed legacy, forever entwined with the tormented spirits that wandered within its walls. Raven's Rest, shrouded in an uneasy calm, awaited the next unsuspecting soul drawn to the allure of the mysterious mansion. The ancient curse persisted, its malevolence echoing through the silent streets, as the legend of Raven Manor claimed yet another victim lost to the shadows of the night. Story 3. In the heart of the quaint town of Ravenscroft, nestled between ancient oaks and fog-laden streets, stood the foreboding mansion known as Raven's Rest. The grand estate had long been abandoned, its once opulent facade now marred by time and decay. Locals whispered tales of a sinister presence that clung to the mansion, and the bravest dared not approach after nightfall. Yet, curiosity beckoned a group of intrepid friends one fateful evening, leading them into the ominous embrace of Raven's Rest. Among the group was Clara, a spirited young woman with a fascination for the supernatural. Drawn by the allure of the mansion's dark history, she convinced her friends to embark on a midnight expedition. Armed with flashlights and nervous laughter, they approached the creaking gates of Raven's Rest, unaware of the malevolent force that awaited them within. The air grew thick as the group ventured through the mansion's grand entrance hall, their footsteps echoing ominously in the cavernous space. Flickering candle sconces cast long, eerie shadows on the walls, and a faint scent of decay lingered in the stagnant air. The atmosphere was laden with an otherworldly energy, a prelude to the chilling events that would soon unfold. As the friends explored the mansion's labyrinthine corridors, they stumbled upon a forgotten ballroom frozen in time. Dust-covered chandeliers hung from the ceiling, their crystals catching the feeble light that penetrated the boarded-up windows. In the center of the room stood a grand piano, its keys untouched for decades, yet an ethereal melody seemed to resonate through the stillness. An inexplicable compulsion seized Clara as she approached the piano. Her fingers hesitated over the keys before succumbing to an unseen force. The room filled with haunting music, echoing through the desolate halls as if played by invisible hands. The friends exchanged uneasy glances, their unease intensifying with each melancholic note. Suddenly, the temperature plummeted, and the once muted whispers of the mansion grew into guttural moans that reverberated through the ballroom. Shadows coalesced into indistinct figures, dancing to the spectral melody. The friends, paralyzed with fear, watched as the room transformed into a nightmarish waltz of the supernatural. In the midst of the spectral dance, a ghastly figure materialized at the piano, a woman in a tattered gown, her eyes hollow voids of despair. The friends recoiled as the ghostly pianist beckoned, her ethereal fingers guiding Clara's trembling hands across the keys. The room pulsed with an otherworldly energy, and the boundaries between the living and the dead blurred. As the last haunting note lingered in the air, the ghostly dancers dispersed, leaving the friends in stunned silence. Clara, her eyes glazed and distant, seemed to be a vessel for the tormented spirit's final performance. The once vibrant energy of Raven's Rest now held a sinister grip on the intruders, sealing their fate within its malevolent embrace. The group pressed on, guided by an unseen force deeper into the mansion's secrets. In a forgotten library, they discovered a collection of dusty journals, each chronicling tales of tragedy, forbidden rituals, and a curse that bound Raven's Rest to the spectral realm. The ghostly pianist, it seemed, was a prisoner of the mansion, forever reliving her final moments in a tragic loop. Determined to free the tormented spirit, Clara and her friends delved into the mansion's dark history. They learned of a forbidden love affair, a betrayal, and a vengeful ritual gone awry. The curse, they discovered, could only be broken by uncovering the truth and offering the ghostly inhabitants a chance at redemption. As the friends delved deeper into the mansion's secrets, the malevolent force that guarded Raven's Rest grew more restless. The very walls seemed to groan with an otherworldly agony, and the air crackled with an unnatural energy. Yet, driven by a sense of duty to the tormented souls trapped within, Clara and her friends pressed on, determined to unravel the threads of Raven's Rest's cursed tapestry. In the mansion's decaying chapel, they uncovered a hidden chamber where the forbidden ritual had taken place. The air grew thick with malevolence as the ghostly pianist materialized once more, her eyes pleading for release. Clara, guided by an unseen hand, began to piece together the tragic events that had led to the curse. As the truth unfolded, the atmosphere in Raven's Rest shifted. The oppressive force that had gripped the mansion weakened, and the ethereal dancers faded into the shadows. A profound stillness settled over the grand estate, signaling the release of the tormented spirits that had long dwelled within. With a final, mournful sigh, the ghostly pianist dissolved into a wisp of light, leaving behind a sense of peace that had eluded Raven's Rest for decades. Clara and her friends emerged from the mansion, their hearts heavy with the weight of the supernatural journey they had undertaken. Raven's Rest, once a bastion of malevolence, now stood silent and still, its secrets laid bare and its haunted legacy laid to rest. As dawn broke on the horizon, the group cast one last glance at the mansion that had held them captive in a dance with the supernatural. The fog-laden streets of Ravenscroft seemed to exhale a collective sigh of relief, as if the town itself acknowledged the liberation of Raven's Rest from the grip of the paranormal. The once forbidding estate, now bathed in the soft light of morning, stood as a testament to the transformative power of confronting the shadows that lurk in the most haunted corners of the human soul. Thank you for watching this video. Make sure to subscribe, like, comment and turn on notifications if you enjoyed the video so you never miss an upload.